Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for.
Transition to mostly the college sports that we talk about on this show, and obviously the big topic that came out of this weekend. And you know where I'm going, and you know what I'm going to talk about, and it is Coach K going off on a student reporter, and I thought looking embarrassing, idiotic, disgusting. I'm actually going to play you the audio in a minute because I don't want there to be any confusion. I don't want anybody to accuse me of paraphrasing, of making it up, of blah, 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 this and that. But before we do, just a very brief kind of rundown. We've talked about Duke extensively on this show. They're not very good. They fall to 5-5 on Saturday with a loss to Louisville. And after the game, in a pretty standard press conference, a Duke student reporter asked Coach K what I think is a pretty benign, innocent question. And I don't know if the word went off is the right kind of way to contextualize it, but I don't think his answer was very Duke, was very proper of him. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pause really quick, and I'm going to actually play you the audio so that you can hear it for yourself before I get into kind of my thoughts on what happened.
Hi, Coach. I'm just curious as to what the next step forward here is for the team as you guys move into another week of basketball.
Yeah, why don't we just evaluate this game? I'm not into what our next step forward is right now. We just finished a hard-fought game. I don't know if, like, what's your major? What's your major at Duke? What's your hardest class?
Econ.
Okay. So say you just had the toughest econ test in the world, and when you walked out, somebody asked you, what's your next step? You see what I mean? You have some empathy and just give us time to evaluate this game, and then we'll figure out, just like we always try to do.
So yeah, I don't think that's very good. I'm not gonna lie, reminds me of Schitt's Creek, one of my favorite shows. Ew, David, ew. That's what that quote reminded me of. I felt kind of gross just even listening to Coach K trying to answer a question in that way and justify it. And so let's get into it. And I guess I should get into it very simply by saying that I was actually sort of surprised. It felt like there was a big initial backlash to the quote. And then immediately on social media, everybody did what they do on social media, which was to very simply say, oh, it wasn't that bad. You millennial kids, you're being soft. You're always trying to tear down somebody at the top. So let's get into it. And what I would say is a couple things really quick. First of all, what I do on this show is I have opinions, right? I talk about whatever is going on in the world of sports at that moment. I get some of them right. I get some of them completely wrong. And I know that there's a lot of people that have played sports, that coach sports, that are going to say, oh, you don't understand. You never played. Well, first of all, I did play. I didn't play at the highest level, but I played throughout high school. I played all 4 years of high school. I actually played baseball and football. I've been coached. I don't mind hard coaching, but I'm also a member of the media. And I think that I can give a different perspective on this from somebody that is in the media, from somebody that has asked hard questions or frankly dumb questions, who has gotten yelled at and scolded by coaches and players and things like that. And I do just also wonder how many people maybe didn't hear that audio until after the initial backlash and were expecting something much worse. But I do also think what can be true is that just because Coach K didn't yell and scream at the kid, it doesn't mean that it didn't sound bad. And so why I think it's bad is for a few reasons. I mean, first of all, it is a student reporter, but I'm going to go ahead and skip that for the moment in time, because I don't think that I don't think anyone in any walk of life should be judged differently based on, arbitrary criteria, right? I would want to be a male reporter to be treated the same way as a female reporter, a student reporter to be treated the same way as an adult reporter, African-American versus Latino versus Asian versus white. I want everybody to be treated the same. But where I want to start is, if this was a dumb question, then I would have no problem with Coach K's response. But that is the first and most important part. This was not a dumb question. The poor kid asked Coach K, how do you plan on moving on after what happened today? That is the most basic reporter 101 question that you can possibly ask. I guess it's number 2. The first question is, Coach, what went wrong? And then the second is, how do you get better? And for those of you saying, oh, now's not the time after a tough loss, because that's what I got a lot of. You don't ask somebody about this after a tough loss. The locker room's in a bad place. Well, guess what? You know why I know it's not a dumb question? Because I guarantee with 100% certainty that it's what Coach K told his players. You know how I know? Because I have been in those locker rooms. I've been a player. I've been a media member. I've never once heard a coach after a tough loss say to his players, you know what, guys? We could move on, but instead of moving on, let's just sit here and sulk. Let's sit here and feel bad for ourselves. No, that's never happened. I've never heard a coach say, guys, we could move on, tough loss, but let's sit here and sulk. That doesn't happen. What a coach says to his team is, guys, that was tough. It was unfortunate. I could have been better. Maybe whatever. We didn't play hard enough. We didn't do that. But the coach always says, all right, we got to move on to the next one. So first of all, the reason I know it wasn't a dumb question, the reason that I will side with this student reporter, not because he's a student, but because it was a perfectly valid question. It is the number 2 question that you ask after a game. What went wrong? How do you get it better? How do you improve and move forward? And I know that for a fact because if you remember, every time that you played sports when you were a kid, never once did the coach say, sit here and sulk. They said, we have to move on. That's what the reporter was asking about, and I have no problems with that at all. The second reason that I thought it was just a scummy, disgusting, despicable answer, first of all, Coach K, just stop lecturing us all the time. But 2, this bogus analogy about, well, imagine the toughest econ test you've ever taken. And imagine how you feel. And what would you want to be like asked after that? Coach K, if that analogy holds true, if your basic argument is after the toughest econ test you've ever taken, you don't want to be asked about what's next, okay, I can live with that. If this was the toughest game that you had ever coached, if this was a national championship game, I get it. You probably don't want to ask what's next. How do you get better? If this was a knockout game in an NCAA tournament, Coach K, who to his credit is very accomplished, has coached in gold medal games in the Olympics. If he had ever lost in the Olympics, you probably don't ask, okay, Coach, so in 4 years, what do you got to do to win this one next time? But this was a loss against Louisville in the middle of the ACC season. And so to equate it to the hardest test you've ever taken, or this student has ever taken, is to analogize that this was in fact the toughest game that Coach K has ever quoted. And unless I'm missing something from that Hall of Fame career that includes 5 national championships, 15 or whatever Final Fours, a couple gold medal games, I don't think this was the toughest game that he's ever coached in. Finally, what I would say is, and this is the part that really kind of bothered me, is that people that want to say, oh, it wasn't so bad. Let me ask you a simple question. If Dick Vitale had asked that same question in a post-game interview, if Jay Billis had asked that question in a post-game interview, would Coach K have answered the same way? I think we all know the answer, and I think we know the answer is absolutely not. Coach K, if it was Jay Billis, if it was Jay Williams, if it was Dick Vitale, if it was Jimmy Dykes, if it was Sean Farnham, if it was Holly Rowe, Coach K would have handled that question, which was a perfectly reasonable question. He would not have responded in that way. And that's what bothers me. I know I opened by saying I'm not defending the kid because he's a kid, but it was so clear to me that Coach K was just trying to bully this kid because he feels bad about how bad he's coaching this team, how bad this season has been. And I think this bottom line goes back to what I've been telling you for 2 or 3 months now. I don't think Coach K wants to coach this season. And I think this is a symptom of that. We go back to when Coach K tried to cancel the season. What did I tell you then? Coach K was one of the last coaches in college basketball to bring back his team over the summer. You could bring back your players in June, in early July. I went through the whole cycle, but I'm pretty sure Arkansas had them back June 1. Texas Tech, June 1. Kentucky, middle of June, maybe early July. I can't remember. But the point was you could have your athletes back in June. Coach K waited until August to bring them back. And part of it is, yes, he is in his 70s. I get it. If he doesn't feel comfortable, that's fine, but he shouldn't be ruining it for the rest of us. But when you add that in with the fact that he brought his players back late, that he was the #1 advocate for having the NCAA tournament with all 346 teams because he didn't want to travel to play out of conference games. And when you add it in with the fact that he also tried to cancel the season 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or a month ago or whatever it was, I just think it's very clear that Coach K does not want to be part of this season. But it did bother me that he went after this kid. It did bother me that people, by the way, defended him. What kind of lesson are you trying to teach this kid? Don't ask questions. Don't be, like it was a perfectly valid question. And again, you guys know me. I'm not Mr. Defend the media at all costs guy. I'm the guy that came on here and crushed the media for 2 or 3 months straight when they were trying to get college football canceled. I rarely defend the media, but it was a perfectly valid question. I'll say this, man. I know he's a student reporter, whatever. It's hard that first time to get on the mic and ask a question. And for the first one to get the response like that, I just thought it was so classless from Coach K. Don't tell me it wasn't that bad. Is it a learning experience for this kid? Yeah, it is. That sometimes no matter what you say, you're going to get a snarky response from people. But I thought it was classless from Coach K. I thought it was embarrassing from Coach K. And I think it's a reflection that he knows his team stinks. He knows he's not doing a good job coaching his team, and he's trying to take it out on everybody else. By the way, I would also add, as we